So I will quickly run through a quick background of myself in the sense that what brought me, to Singularity and why I'm so passionate about helping humanity using technology. I was brought up in Klang, Malaysia. I studied in America at USC actually. So there's so much connection with Awesomeness Fest. I mean, as you heard, Dave, he's from USC too, and I did my MBA and my undergrad there. Then, like Tom, I went to the dark side of the force when greed was good in the 80s. So I was one of the 14 people selected into the North American program in Citibank. Came back to Malaysia for 3 years. Went and did my Ph.D. at Bond University in the Gold Coast because it was just a beautiful place, 20 miles of beach. So I've been there for the last 21 years. So do come and visit me. And then I wrote a book. My area of specialty was in neural networks, artificial intelligence, applying it to finance and so on. But you can apply it to other areas like predicting heart attacks and stuff like that. And then I started this company, Bond Wireless, which has been running for the last 10 years now. We actually do all the secure SMS messaging for HIV clinics in Ireland, UK, Australia, and so forth. So if somebody gets a message incorrectly, they can't read it and so on. And then I was an entrepreneur residence fellow at the Gold Coast Innovation Center and a professor at both Bond and Griffith. And now Silicon Lakes, Greg, my friend from Gold Coast, is here. We basically, it's an incubator in the Gold Coast. We're trying to revive the startup scene out there. And now to Singularity. Now, you'll see me in a lot of these pictures. It's not that I'm narcissistic and so on. It's just copyright issue. I don't look as good as Stephanie, I'm sorry, but you just have to make do with what you have. So essentially, it is in Singularity University is actually in Silicon Valley, right next to Googleplex. It's in NASA Ames Research Center. NASA Ames is the headquarters for NASA. A lot of new technology was actually done in there. This is the famous aerodrome where they actually put an airship in there. This was taken 2 years ago when I was there. They stripped this entire thing out, and it's just a skeleton now if you go out there. And then they're going to rebuild it back, and then there was a budget cut. So now if you go there, it's totally, it's just a skeleton of it. But Google has come to the rescue. Google is going to put it back up again. In return, the Google executives will be parking their private jets in here. So Singularity University, what's all about? You see this 10 to the power 9 plus thing. That's a billion, okay? Basically, what we try to do is train the leaders of the world and humanity, how technology can be utilized to impact the life of 1 billion people positively within 10 years. So any projects we work on has to have that skill. And it's sponsored, it was a non-profit. We changed from a non-profit to a benefits corporation, which means that, you see, the problem with corporation, right? What is the main objective of a corporation? Any accountants here? I think I met some accountants. Yeah, that's right. What's the main objective of a corporation? Maximize shareholders' profit, right? So, very good. So the problem with that is, at what expense? Do you sell your parents? Do whatever you can? So that's the issue, right? So what happened was, as a non-profit, you also have another issue. You basically can't advise companies, you can't take equity, you can't make profit, you can't be sustainable. You depend on donation all the time. And Singularity is sponsored by Google, Kauffman Foundation, Cisco, Nokia, and all these guys. But they changed into a benefit corporation. It's a new structure. Look it up. It's a B corporation. What it allows you to do is you, as the director of the company, do not have to maximize shareholders' profit as the main objective. I believe that the main objective you should do is provide a social benefit. And your second objective is obviously be profitable, so you're sustainable. So I think that's the basis of social enterprise, the way I understand it. So Singularity University, as I said, the mission is to inspire, educate, and empower leaders to use exponential technologies. And I'll explain to you what exponential technologies is. It was started by these two people, Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis. Peter Diamandis, obviously, Vision has mentioned him many times. So I will just go through quickly who Ray Kurzweil is and Peter. So Ray wrote a number of books, and one of the books he wrote is called The Singularity is Near. I think some of you actually read the book. I have to admit, I actually have not read the book, but I've seen the movie. Anyway, what Ray said was essentially technology is moving so fast, so rapidly, that by 2045, the computational power we have will be able to simulate every single neuron in your brain, and you can interface with a computer and live in it like in the Matrix, like what Vision was saying, forever, if you wanted to. So that was how the term singularity came about. Not everybody agree with Ray's theory, but this is to give you a bit of idea who Ray is. When he was 17 years old, he was the first person to write a computer-generated music. And he was very passionate about trying to help blind people access books. And he is the guy that invented the CCD scanner on your scanners, and he created the first reading machine for the blind. Stevie Wonder became a good friend of him, a good friend of Ray, because obviously he was very grateful he could now access the library and so forth. And he said, Ray, I have this problem though, like I can't, I love composing music, but I can't play all the instruments. So can you help me? Like he created a keyboard. And the Kutzwell synthesizer was invented. So you've seen all the bands that have Kutzwell on it, that's his. So Ray is now the director of engineering at Google, he wrote a new book called Creating a Mind this year. So with Google's resources, he's trying to create an artificial brain that will do immense stuff. Then he wrote a book called, there's a movie also called The Transcendent Man. And those interested in health, I think many of you are as I am, you got to read this book called Transcend. Ray takes 168 vitamin pills a day because he believed that if you read Transcend, our body has been programmed to age, as all of you know. Previously in our evolution, following Kylie's line, following the evolution of human species, it was more beneficial for you to age and die off once you have offsprings. So once you pass the age of 20 plus, you start getting old. But in this day and age, where we have abundant food and abundant shelter, we actually don't need to get old. So what we're working on is actually trying to prolong longevity, maybe even the potential of living forever if you don't get knocked down by a bus. So Transcend is a really interesting book. I encourage you to read it. He has a website called rayandterry.com. He's actually selling the vitamins he takes online. You fill up a questionnaire, and it tells you what you need to take. You need to do a blood test and so forth. But yeah. Anyway, so a bit more on exponential technology. As you can see, an exponential curve means that something that doubles like the most famous is Moore's law, right? Computational power doubling every 18 months. And I'll give you a bit more example of what it is. At the moment, we basically have about the computational power to basically simulate an insect brain. And by next year, probably a mouse brain. By 2045, a human brain. By 2050, probably all of human brains. So what are you going to do with all that power? Anyway, just going back to exponential technology, right? If our brain is so in tune in terms of linear thinking, okay, what I mean is like, if I say that I take 1 meter a step, in 30 steps, how far would I be? 30 meters, right? If I take an exponential step, first step, 1 meter, second, 2, and so forth, 4, 8, in 30 exponential steps, how far do you think you have gone? Anybody? I'll give you a prize. Kangaroo. A billion. A million? A billion. All right. This guy is good. You would have gone 26 and a half times around the earth. Okay? And that's how fast technology is moving, and that's what you need to basically think, in terms of exponential steps and predicting where things are going to go. Peter Diamandis needs no introduction. Vision gave him a fantastic overview. But, basically, as Vision said, Peter, got his degree from MIT and medical degree at Harvard and a medical doctor, but he's a bit short. But he's always wanted to be an astronaut. He wanted to go to space, right? And it's a bit hard to be an astronaut if you're a bit short in those days. So he wanted to bring down the cost of flying. And yes, basically he was inspired by Charles Lindbergh flying the Atlantic Ocean across the Atlantic Ocean to win a $26,000 prize money, which is the equivalent of about $300,000 today. And that spurred, I think, $100,000, which is like about $2 or $3 million in today's money in terms of aviation technology. Oh yeah, his book. If you haven't read his book, you must read his book, Abundance. The future is better than you think. You notice the cover of the book is kind of like aluminum foil. The reason for that is because aluminum, which is I think the 5th most abundant element on Earth, was the most expensive metal in the 19th century. Okay, because it's very, very hard to extract aluminum using the traditional method of melting it, a very high melting point. The Napoleon III, when he served his guest of honor from the king of Siam, he actually served them with aluminum crockery and cutlery because it was more expensive than gold. And then they discovered how to extract bauxite using electrolysis. And what do you do? Aluminum falls now. You just use it and dump it. And that's what's happened to technology, right? Technology can change things so fast, right? So another example would be like Kodak, right? A company that was a multi-billion-dollar company, invented a digital camera, didn't see the exponential growth of the digital camera, and now Instagram is worth more than, well, Kodak is gone. And Instagram has 16 people, while Kodak had what, 30,000 or a few 100,000 people in his heydays, and now it's actually gone. So as you know, the X Prize, the story that Vishen told you about how the Space Galactic, there's a replica of it hanging on the Googleplex in the Google, because Google is sponsoring the Google Lunar Prize. The first person who can send a robot to the moon, move 50 meters, take a photo, and send it back, wins $40 million in prize money and $40 million from NASA on contracts. The other interesting prizes are, Vishen mentioned the Tricorder X Prize, and there's the other one, this 100 over 100, the Archon Genomics X Prize, sequencing the genes of 100 people over the age of 100. What's the commonality in it? Because if you know that, all of us could basically live as long and be as healthy. So what Vishen is doing is fantastic in trying to support the X Prize. Now, a bit of Singularity University. If you apply directly to the university, there's two ways of getting in. One is compete in local competitions in your countries, if there's one. The other one is apply directly to it. So 2 years ago, I was lucky enough to get into a program. They select you on 3 criteria: your academic field, your entrepreneurial skill, and your passion to solve grand challenges. Now, having said that, top in academic field, it doesn't really mean you need to have a degree, okay? Because a lot of my classmates actually were just fantastically intelligent people that didn't think university was, interesting enough for them. As you can see, the number of applicants that has grown exponentially too, which is why now they're trying to get more people to come into competitions than to apply directly. Last year, there were like 4,000 applicants for 80 places. It's me, this is my classmates. Yeah, I mean, it was such a diverse student body. We had people in Saudi Arabia. There was a sponsor in Israel that sponsored 3 Israeli students and insisted that he wanted to sponsor a Palestinian student. It's amazing. I mean, it's really amazing. So these are the areas that, it's a 10-week program. They teach you all the latest technology in the first 5 to 7 weeks. You visit Google, you visit Facebook, you visit all the Silicon Valley companies. And then the final 3 to 5 weeks, you work on the project with your friends and your team members to impact the world positively within 10 years, 1 billion people. So global health, water, energy, environment, food, education, security, and poverty. And, so it's a 10-week program. This program, Awesomeness Fest is fantastic. And Vishen is, it's amazing thing. I mean, we have so much relaxation time, so much food to eat. Singularity, it's a bit the same, except that we also work on Sundays and Saturdays, and the 10-week program is equivalent to more than 240 hours of contact time, which is more than an MBA program in 2 years. So you work on this, and then the final weeks you work on the projects, and you're so passionate about trying to see your project go up that people just don't sleep at all. It's amazing, and 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning you can walk around and have conversations about solving some global challenges that you never heard of. Not everybody obviously can get into the graduate study program, so they run the executive programs every month. Even that itself is selective, but once you're in the program, it's just like what Dave was talking about, tribal stuff. You actually become part of the community. Everybody I've met at Singularity, everybody, whether it's staff, it's any of the alumnus from the executive programs or the Future Med, which is a medical program, are fantastic. Fantastic people that you can immediately trust, just like you guys, right? I mean, that's a really cool thing about the U.S. environment and the Singularity in particular. People share ideas. And that's how I think, and that's my principle, right? If you go to my blog, I want to seek knowledge, but I want to share it. I might not be able to use everything I know, but one of you may. And one of you might make a fantastic change in the world. And that's the amazing thing that you find at Singularity. Amazing people that, basically are very, very helpful, trying to help you wherever they can. So let me talk about exponential technology now. As I said, comparing a linear movement to an exponential one. if you want to look for businesses to invest in or get yourself involved in, look for what's called the knee of the curve. Things are just starting to go. Because when it goes, it'll be so fast that you would probably be hard to enter the market, right? So I'll talk about some of these technologies emerging, or it's already here, some of them. So you guys are familiar with 3D printers? Any? Yep. It's also known as additive manufacturing. There's two ways, right? One is just adding layers and layers of stuff on it. And the second one is obviously trying to cut out a block of steel or whatever to make whatever you want. Now, the amazing thing about 3D printers is that 80 to 90% of the parts of a 3D printer can be made by a 3D printer. It can replicate itself. If you give one to a village, they can make another one, and another one, another one, and replicate itself. It's going to allow you to have personalized manufacturing. In future, you don't need to go and buy the Louis Vuitton bag. You just need to download the software and print your own. We are at the stage where printers were. Remember the old days when you do laser printing, you actually have to go to Kinko's or one of the print shop. Now what do? You just print at home, right? Same thing is going to come. It's very early days, but it's coming. This one, I'm not sure you guys have seen this article about how they 3D scan an entire Stradivarius violin, one of the rarest violin in the world. It knows every nook and cranny on this violin. When you 3D print it, it's in the most exact replica. And the other thing is obviously connecting your wetware, your brain, to the hardware. Okay, I actually spoke about this when I was teaching at Bond University about 20 years ago, because my old university at USC, they actually developed a chip that you can plant into your brain that will fire neurons. So if you have brain damage, it will refire and try to repair your brain. The cool thing about this is that, if you have a crappy day, you can see Tom and meditate, or you can reboot to the day that you had a great day and back up, from your backup copy, and you have a great day. But the problem is obviously remember to back up. Okay, so Watson. Anybody heard of Watson? Watson is the IBM computer that beat contestants in Jeopardy, right? I'm not sure if you know, this year, Watson actually did better at diagnosing cancer than human doctors. So in very, very near future, on your app, the Tricorder Prize, whatever it is, you might just scan your brain and do a blood test on your iPhone. All the data goes up in the cloud. Watson will give you advice. You might not even need doctors. It might even be more accurate than doctors. So that's all coming, this AI. Okay, now the other thing is obviously, I think most of you I spoke to know that we have this reptilian brain, right? The fight or flight thing where Dave said, I think Tom said the lizard comes in and look around whether it's food or it's danger. That has basically served a purpose. We have evolved, we have survived, we are now in a fantastic time of civilization. But we are very negative, right? That's why it became all these negative. We're always looking for danger. So that's why news is always negative. So I just want to alleviate your fears, of technology. Look at what has happened, right? Human life has more than doubled. Infant mortality is reduced by 90%. And most of this happened in the last century, and so forth. So another example here, it's a small area here. Transport from Boston to Chicago used to cost you a month's wage. Now it's half a day wage. And this was in 2000 anyway. 3-minute phone call used to be 19 hours of work to make a call. Now it's basically free, right? If you use WhatsApp or Skype and so forth. So this is Moore's law. As the computers doubling every 18 months. And but I don't know whether you know about the cost of sequencing your gene. It has fallen faster than Moore's law. Okay, why is that important? It used to be $1 billion to sequence your genes 10 years ago. Today it's less than $1,000. And you can do it in 4 hours. Why is this important? Because it has created new areas now like pharmacogenomics. Anybody know what pharmacogenomics is? Oh, very good. Anyway, so basically pharmacogenomics is the area of science where you prescribe medication according to your genetic makeup. Because right now, you and I are prescribed medicine tested on a small set of people in the Western world mainly, right? Because it's where the pharmaceutical companies are. And the problem is that you and I may have certain genetic markers that are actually will react badly to the dosage that's been prescribed. So now from your genes, they know what kind of medication to actually prescribe to you. The other area is epigenetics. How does the environment affect your genes? Most of the cancer triggers and so on could be caused by anything. Could be caused by a perfume, a pesticide. You don't know what it is. And this is a whole new area people are looking at. And sequencing your genes is very important because that gives you the knowledge to be able to react and better prepare yourself. So, just an example. Look at this in Africa. Cell phone penetration was 2% in 2000. 2013, 70%. This Maasai warrior, if this was a smartphone, has access to more information than Bill Clinton did as the President of the United States. Think about that. Why is that important? You got 1 billion people in Africa. Remember, I guess most of you, who grew up during my time will remember the first video player that came out. It was like $3,000, right? I mean, you get all this free now on your phone, right? On a $900 phone, or even less than that now, a smartphone. You have basically, all this kind of products in your hand. The Africans now have that. They're skipping all the development work that had to go into the technology side where we actually use it, and you have it all in your palm of your hand. And that is going to level the playing field. So, I think in Tiffany's talk yesterday about fighting poverty and bringing them, this is one of the ways that we see as a very, very important tool to bring them back, to bring them into the same technology curve as we are. And mobile phones are ubiquitous everywhere, right? So this Indian guy might be running a call center on his mobile phone. So I just want to do my Indian accent, sorry. Okay, let me give you an example of how, how mobile phone created a new business in Africa. This guy in this village, this is the only spot on the tree that you could get a reception on. So he built this tree house and he charged $5 shillings or whatever for anybody who would make a call. And now he lives in this house. No, I'm kidding. Okay, everything you see here is 3D printed. We can 3D print on more than 12 different materials, even genetic stuff. Nike has got 3D printed shoes now. So it's got really amazing stuff. Like you can 3D print on fabric, 3D print my favorite chocolates. You can 3D print a car. An entire car is actually 3D printed. Some of the items you see here can never be replicated by human hand. It actually has to be 3D printed. The other thing is exponential technology, growth of information. You guys heard of this big data, cloud. What is it? Right? It is data, right? Information. Data is not information. Data is just storage of information. You need to convert it and make it information and then turn it into knowledge. Now, from the start of civilization until 2003, every book, every music piece that we created in civilization total up to 5 billion gigabytes of data. How much data do you think we generate today? That amount of data, how long do you think it would take to generate this amount of data? Sorry? 10 minutes. Okay. Think about it. Your camera, right? The resolution of your camera has gone from kilopixels to megapixels, and now it's gigapixels, right? Your MRI scans are more accurate now. And more than 100 hours of video content, thanks to Mindvalley, has been added to YouTube, every minute. So what are the technology that's coming? So we have seen computers, mobile phones. We have seen internet, e-commerce, social media. The new area that's coming in a big way is biotech and the Internet of Things, right? You guys have seen the new Philips Lumen lamp, Lumix is it? The lamp they sell in Apple. You put this light bulb, it has internet access to your home machine, and you can control the lighting, the mood lighting in your house. Before you get home, you can actually turn into a really romantic setting or a party light and so on. So everything you own is going to be connected to the internet, right? So you can control them digitally. Even your pacemaker. So biotech, networks, AI, robotics, 3D, and further down the track, nanotechnology. Okay, I'll talk a bit more about nanotechnology in a while. So the speakers at Singularity, just to show you some people that I think are really interesting. Dean Kamen is the guy that invented the Segway machine, but he also is the guy that invented something called the slingshot. It purifies water at a very low cost, and he has managed to get Coca-Cola to put one into every single bottling plant in Africa so that they can get cheap, free water. Because he actually is kind of a biomedical engineer, and he developed a dialysis filter for the kidney. And he said, well, if I can filter water as pure as the kidney, I can filter dirty water for a lot of the poor developing world. Aubrey Gray, if you don't know him, he just donated $15 million of his own money into a project he deeply believes in, prolonging your life and giving you better life. He came and lectured us and told us the 7 reasons why we age. And every one of those 7 reasons right now, there is a solution being worked on. It's only if we can live long enough. So he claims that If we can prolong your life 30 years, you will be able to live another 30 years and another 30 years and live forever if you wanted to, if you don't get knocked down by a bus. So just be careful with buses. Yeah. If you don't know who Craig Venter is, I mean, Vint Cerf is the father of the internet. Craig Venter, look him up, okay? In 2010, he's the first man in the world to develop the first biological, first synthetic bacteria. The DNA of the bacteria was entirely created in a computer. If you sequence the DNA of this bacteria, they took the DNA, it was actually created in a computer, they injected it into a shell of a bacteria, and it's multiplying and growing as a living thing. If you sequence the DNA of this bacteria, you will find the 42 names of the scientists that work on this project, its own email address, and its own website address. Why is this important? Like, who cares, right? Well, think about it. If you can program a living biological thing, for example, an algae, and make it more useful, like converting sunshine into energy, or training it or programming it to detect and attack cancer cells in your body or HIV virus. Think of the implications. It's amazing stuff that you can do with it. So these are the Singularity guys, the chairs of the program. Everybody is a fantastic guys. All of them are, I think, TED speakers. And I just want to point out to the single ladies, including my daughter here. This is Dan Kraft. He's the head of faculty of medicine, and he invented the bone minor marrow, the marrow minor. You know, like if you need to take bone marrow because you have cancer and so on, it's a very painful process. You got to take multiple jabs. He invented this thing like a vacuum cleaner. You stick it in, and it just sucks up all your marrow that you know in one shot. He's a professor at Stanford and Harvard, and he's a fantastic guy. He speaks faster than me, and he's also the most eligible bachelor in science. So. It's a free pointer for you. Okay, not everything was just technology and all these great people coming to tell us stuff. But this guy is Ewan Wadongo. Okay, you can't see it here, but his glasses are really thick. He's almost legally blind because when he was a kid, when he studied in Kenya, in a hut, he was using kerosene lamp. And if you guys know about kerosene lamp, it's bad for your lungs and it's also really bad for your eyes. So he's almost legally blind. So when he became an engineer in Kenya, he decided to work on a way to basically provide a way to allow his people to have affordable lamp. He created this project called Just One Lamp, and he was a CNN hero of 2010. And essentially, you can build this lamp in your village for $5, charge it up during the day, and in the night, you have light. And guess who's sitting behind me? Somebody mentioned Wozniak. Yeah, it's old Steve Wozniak. So, Steve, these are people that you meet at Singularity. He's sitting behind me, literally. And I went up to him and I said, well, if you come to the Gold Coast, look me up. And actually, we did message each other when he came to the coast. He said Gold Coast was a bit like Miami without the Cubans. A lot of tall buildings and beaches. So my classmates, it's Cha Mi-yeon, a very famous TV journalist in Korea. I didn't know how famous until I came back from Singularity, and she sent me a photo of her and Steven Spielberg. And I went to a Korean restaurant and showed it to a waitress. I said, do you know this girl? She said, oh my God, you know Cha Mi-yeon. I said, yeah, I didn't know she was that famous, but anyway. She's all about me, you see. No, I'm anyway. And this is Salif, who's from Mali. He's trying to create a co-op in Mali to allow rice traders to directly access the markets, so they don't get screwed up by the commodity markets and so on. And I think I met some Bulgarian here, right? This is Nikola Danilov. So Nikola is actually a Bulgarian living in Canada, and he has a blog called Singularity Web Blog. He's a good friend of mine and was in my team. So this guy that I don't really know at the time and did this to him like I did to everybody else. Is the first chief technology officer of the White House. His name, so this is Anil, and Anil Chopra. And basically, one of the biggest issues in the US right now, believe it or not, is immigration of skilled workers. They basically are saying, like, why are we training the best brains in the world in the best American universities, like from China, India, and so on, and then sending them home to compete with us? It's really silly because what's happened is, like, you can go to MIT or Stanford, but if you're an Indian citizen, guess how long it will take you to get your skilled migrant visa, your green card? Anybody? How about 70 years? 70, okay? And for Chinese, 20 years. Because U.S. has this immigration rule that basically gives out 132,000 visas a year, a green card. But each country can only get, I think, how many? I think like 7.8%. So unfortunately, the population of China and India is pretty big. So that's what's been happening there. So what's happened is the venture funds in the US got really ticked off with this because they can't hire these brains. So they decided to create a blue seed, which is this huge platform of incubator, anchor it 12 kilometers from the coast of California in international waters, so there's no visa issue, and have these ferries running back and forth into San Francisco. So that's why for Malaysia and all these other countries, suck in all the brains. And when I was in Silicon Valley, the Chinese were doing that. They were like bringing in so many, they were coming to recruit not only Chinese students to go back to China, they're recruiting everybody. This is Ralph Merkel, one of my heroes. For those in the computer industry, he's one of the founder of PGP, the Pretty Good Privacy. And he is now one of the foremost experts in nanomolecular manufacturing. So what is nanomolecular manufacturing? Making really small, tiny machines that can make themselves and make more of things that you want. So read Eric Drexler's book, Engineer Creation, and his new book, Abundant. I think it was called. It's something. I can't remember the title now. Something to do with abundance, but it's a follow-up book. Eric Drexler basically wrote his book, Engineers of Creation, saying that a cow, I know it's a holy animal, is nothing more than a machine an engine that can convert water and grass into steak. If you can move the molecules, you can actually make steak. And I'll show you some of the things that are happening right now. Okay, guess what these are? Death Star. No. No, it looks like Death Star, but it's actually nanorespirocytes. These are leukocytes, your blood cells. These are tiny machines that can carry oxygen more efficiently than your blood cells. So rumor has it, I can't tell you, for sure, that the Navy SEALs already have this. So if you inject it into your bloodstream, you can stay underwater for 4 hours without breathing. The microcytes, this is nano, right? This is 10 to the power -9. The bigger ones, they actually have made public. They're actually using it in UK right now. If you have a lung that collapsed during smoke inhalation, they can shoot it into your bloodstream, and you might not be breathing, but you will survive for 30 minutes until they get you to the hospital. So that's what's happening. And this is something coming, not yet here. This is a projection of what they want to do. They want to create this tiny little nanobots that will go into your bloodstream. And when they see a cancer cell, they will zap it before it can attach itself. So you have all these little tiny bots going around. It's another one of my heroes. My PhD was in neural networks, and I did some work from the earlier PhD work that Andreas Wiegand did. Andreas Wiegand did his PhD at Stanford, and then he went on to Amazon.com and became the chief data scientist. He has left that and gone to Stanford to become the professor in social media. Look at his T-shirt. QR code, right? It's a really smart idea. He gives this shirt to all his students. When they go out and you take a photograph of the students, and you got a QR code reader, it immediately sends him the information where they are, what they're doing. Okay, this guy is Astro Teller. He's the chief scientist. He's the chief development officer of Google X. Google X is that special skunk works of Google that do all the Google Glass, the Google car, all the amazing stuff. His name is Astro Teller. His grandfather is Edward Teller, the father of the atomic bomb, the hydrogen bomb. His other grandfather is also the Nobel Prize physics winner. But he actually taught me a very interesting thing about Google. He said at Google, you know that it's very hard to get into Google, right? If you've seen the movie Internship, all the interview process, 8 months to get in. He said that when somebody come up to him in his team and said, I want to work on a project, I want to do something, you know what he'll tell them? He said, here is a 6 months bonus, forget about it. I'm like, why do you hire the best brains in the world, and then when they come up with an innovative idea, you tell them to don't worry about it? He said, well, the reason why is everybody at Google are smart. Everybody got great ideas, but are they passionate? Because if they're not passionate, I'm going to give them a team. They're going to work for 6 months, doesn't work, they're going to say, doesn't work, and I just wasted 6 months of everybody's time. If they are passionate, even if I say no, they will still work it on their own time. And that's Google's culture. Interesting, isn't it? This is Vinod Koshal. He is holding my mobile phone. And I want it back. No, okay. Vinod Koshal is the co-founder of Sun Microsystems. He now has something called Koshal Venture Funds. He calls it Venture Assistance. So one of my best friends in the Gold Coast invented this device. It's an ECG device on your iPhone that essentially takes your heartbeat and tell you whether you're having a heart attack or atrial fibrillation and so forth. It has already saved 3 lives. Somebody on a plane had a chest pain. Pilot refused to land unless a real emergency. Doctor pulled this out, stuck it on his chest, showed that he was having a heart attack. They landed and saved him. Another guy was doing it, and the data was going back live to one of my old university at USC. They were doing some trials, and they could see that the guy was doing it was having a heart attack. They called him and said, "Mate, go to the hospital now. You're actually having a heart attack." It's an amazing product. I mean, and remember I told you I did some work in neural networks? That's how I became good friends with Bruce, because I was trying to predict financial market crashes using neural nets. And then I found out that he and I discovered that we can also do the same thing predicting heart attacks, because your heart gives out signal before it crashes, just like the stock market does. So there's a bit of connectivity there. So you put your fingers on this device, and it takes your heartbeat. And the amazing thing on the technology side is, being the Australian that he is, he didn't want to pay for Bluetooth technology and all this stuff. So he invented a way to transmit the information from the case to the phone without radio frequency. Guess how? Ultrasound. It transmits through the microphone. It's a 19 kilohertz sound. Only dogs and my banker can hear it. I don't know why. Every time I put it, he can hear a buzz. So anyway, maybe my banker and dogs have some similarity. I don't know. Anyway, okay, a bit of NASA tour. I'm not sure if I've got time to go through it, but I'll just show you quickly. NASA used to be known as NACA, or they don't like to be called NACA, but it's the National Aeronautics Commission on Aerospace. We did a backstage tour, and everything looks a bit old, right? And that's the thing, after Google, we went to NASA, and then the younger guys, I was one of the older guys in the class, and they said, like, Clarence, going to NASA is like going to the museum. Everything is old, the people are old, and you're like, oh. Anyway, this is the wind tunnel testing up to Mach 12, which is 12 times the speed of sound. So this crane will lift the rockets and the planes in here, and then they can test it in real time. And the amazing thing for me, a geeky guy, right, to go in, they allow me to walk around in the supercomputer center at NASA and take photographs. This was like, at the time, the 7th fastest computer in the world. These are all the banks of computers in NASA, and these are all the hard drives for backup. But NASA spent all their money on the machines, and then there was a budget cut. They don't have much money for power backup, so when there's a blackout, only 10% of these machines actually run, which is scary, because when a space shuttle flies, they have a full simulation of the space shuttle. And I'll show you some simulation of what you do with it. This is a helicopter propeller, that's testing the wind flow and so forth. Sorry, not so clear here, but the other thing that's happening is there are about 19 companies in the world that are looking to go to mine asteroids and the moon. The moon has got helium-3, which is a very rare element on Earth, and also platinum, which is on meteorites and so forth. Good news from NASA is that basically, that we're all going to live longer, healthier, maybe forever. What are we going to do? Well, like what Vision said, Elon Musk said we have to be an interplanetary species. So NASA said, going to Mars, not a problem. We can even terraform Mars and make it habitable, right? So I think there's already a project going on. They want to send people to Mars by 2025. So you want to sign up, come see me. Okay, that's the good news. The bad news is if you go to Mars, it's a one-way ticket. You can't come back. Okay? Because your bone structure, the gravity is lower there, so you come back, your body might not be able to take the gravity that we have. But people like myself who feel a bit heavier will feel so much lighter on Mars. And then we get to go and play with a flight simulator. Because Singularity, we've got so many programs we can go to, we can't do all of them. You can go see Tesla, or you can go and become a space shuttle pilot. Now, being a space shuttle pilot is amazing, right? But the problem is, not everybody can go to it. So at Singularity, you have to pass a test. You actually have to do a Microsoft Flight Simulator test. And if you pass that, then you get selected into the program. I'm not sure how good a test is, because my friends that got into the program crashed the simulator on a 747, so none of us could actually fly it. This is also a simulator for 360 degrees of traffic control management. And this is the drone, the US Army Drone Research Center at NASA. So this is a small drone. They are refitting this helicopter into a drone, and this drone now is being deployed in Afghanistan, where they can take gigapixel pictures, so you can zoom in and see stuff. So this is Google. Went to Google. These are, I think, the most cushy job in Google, right? These are like, what, security guards for Google, like fighting off nerds. How hard can that be? But I love Google, right? Like the food, they have shark oysters every day, and the food is amazing. They have this policy: you cannot be more than 150 feet from food and drinks, free. So Google have the Google bicycles, and this is the Android, Google Android, so you can actually, basically, every time Google comes out with a new Google Android version, like a gingerbread or a Claire and so on, they'll bring out one of these statues. And this is the Google Street Map car, the one that takes photos in your street. And this is in front of Singularity University. This is Rob Neils, the CEO of Singularity's car. This is his Roadster. This is Jordan Knowles' car. It's an evolution of car, right? And this is the Google Stealth Navigation car. And my favorite car, the Tesla X. 7-seater SUV, 0 to 100 in 4 seconds. If your car breaks down, you don't need to fix it. They will send somebody to change the part. It's all electronic. There's only 2 motors on the front and the back. That's it. The front and the back trunk, and there's nothing in it. There's no engine. There's no oil change. Nothing. It'll be out next year. So, and then this is the Google Stealth Navigation car. 3 states in the US already approved it: Nevada, Florida, and California. So essentially, I was driving on the highway actually, and then there's this, nobody's driving this car, and it's trying to cut in, and I didn't let it cut in, and it was actually a Google car, and it did not cut in because it's actually computer automated, right? So it knows how to be safe. When I was there was, the Google car actually had an accident. Wasn't me, I swear. It was an employee that knocked the back of the car. So humans are more dangerous than machines. This is the Autodesk 3D printing gallery. Everything you see is 3D printed, from the motorbikes to this stuff here. Like some of this stuff can only be made by machines. Now, what really inspired me with 3D printing is Scott Summit, right? He designs prosthetic limbs using 3D printers for people who have lost their limbs, because people are very embarrassed about it. But look at this one. The bikie, it matches his bike. The lady matches her dress, and so forth. And some of these prosthetic limbs are more effective than your normal limbs. Facebook, I don't want to talk too much about Facebook because there really wasn't much we could do at Facebook. They won't allow me to take any photos. No free food. So there's a big no-no on. And Facebook actually is the old headquarters. They have moved to Sun's old headquarters now. You don't even see the Facebook name anymore. You always see the like sign. And I asked them why. They said, we don't want our fans to disrupt our work and also protesters. So you notice, every time somebody hooks up somebody on Google, on Facebook, it'll light up. But there's a big dark spot here. It's China. It's banned in China. So how big can it be? So energy. So essentially, 1% of the world is covered by solar panels. So if you can actually harness the power of solar panel, you will actually be very useful. But one of the issues is, how do you store energy? Well, at Rice University, they've developed a 5-layer paint that can paint your house and become a solar battery. It's a battery, a lithium-ion battery. And the cost of a barrel of oil is about $100, right? To ship it to Afghanistan, guess how much it costs? $26,000 a barrel. Why? Because it get blown up, and then they have to parachute it in. So some of these guys at NASA, this company has developed this flatbed truck that actually folds up. You parachute it down, and it will track the sun. So this is actually one of the solutions they're doing out. And just as an interesting point, the budget for air conditioning the U.S. troops is more than the budget for NASA. And NASA has sent devices to the Mars, right? So think about the money that they've been spending on the military side. So we visited a National Ignition Facility. Somebody asked me about energy. So this is the other positive thing. They are working on firing 190 laser beams onto one single hydrogen atom to create cold fusion, like the power of the sun. So you have perpetual energy. So they're working on that. Okay, this is the thing I really want to talk about. This is my classmate Pablo Solomon from Uruguay. We're having a spit party. We are spitting into a test tube, as you can see. It goes to this company called 23andMe. I think you can do it for $90 now. In 6 weeks' time, they email you the results, and you can find out your genes, like your health traits, your ancestry, what kind of diseases. So I'm sharing with you my data, okay? I think it's too much data, actually. So, I have a higher risk of atrial fibrillation and age-related macular degeneration of the eye. So I know that I should go and get more checkups and take preventive measures. Some people are like, I don't want to know. If it happens, then it will happen, right? So you should want to know, right? Other things like, my ear wax is dry, so if you need to know. All the other stuff. Now, the really interesting thing was this, being a male, I can actually track my ancestry on the male side and the female side, my paternal side and my maternal side. So my parents are from, my grandparents from my dad's and my mom's side were from China, but different part of China. My dad was from Hainan Island. My grandfather from my dad's side was from Hainan Island. And nothing really interesting here, right? Totally Asian, the gene map. But my mom from Fuzhou, which is the southern part of China, look at this. Tanya, I'm related to you. I'm related to the Mayans and the Incas and so on. I have higher correlation to them than the Asians. So I'm going back to the US to claim some Indian reservation land. I'm going to open a casino, and you guys got to call me Chief Sitting 10, okay? So what's happening in this synthesis biology area? I don't think I have time to get through everything, but I want to get through this part because this kid, right, 26-year-old dropout, managed to create less than a $4,000 lab to allow you to actually do biological experiments at a very low price, like growing your own bacteria and injecting DNA and stuff. And what he did was like use a kettle, use a glue gun and so forth. So what does this mean? Okay, this means programming your genes is similar to computer programming. Okay, if you write the same code, it will do exactly the same thing. Okay, except that in computer programming, as you know, there are 0 and 1s, right? Binary. In DNA, it's base 4, ATCG. It's a 4 genetic material in there. If you write the right program code, so a guy at Singularity University has set up a company called BioCompiler. They changed the name to BioCompiler that allow you to compile programs to write programs for changing your genes. So for example, I want to make my cat glow in the dark. How would I do it? So I go to this company, Complete Genomics, right? Pull one of the cat's hair, send it to them for $2,000 and 3 to 5 days. They will send me a chip or a hard drive with all the data. I download that, so I got my cat DNA. Now I need to make, I need the glow-in-the-dark gene. Well, good news. There's something called open source DNA. You can download the database of a glow-in-the-dark gene, a luciferase gene from a jellyfish. Download it into your machine. Go to this company, DNA 2.0. They have a software called Gene Designer. Download it. Program it, play around with it until you're happy, send it back to them for $2,000 in 5 days. Voila. Yeah, but some of you guys are really fussy and don't like green, so red then, at the moment. So you can, they've already done this. So you can do glow-in-the-dark cats, right? And my classmate, actually I couldn't speak at TEDx scale. I was invited to speak about Singularity. So my classmate had the fastest Kickstarter-funded project. He created the glow-in-the-dark plant. For $40, he sent you the seeds of the first glow-in-the-dark plant. Think about it. Don't need light anymore. You got natural lighting now. So at the end of the day, what does it all mean? That means a virus is going to be nothing more than a software, an app. You want to have, you're a brunette, you want to be a blonde, swallow a pill or inject a DNA onto it, and presto, you're a blonde. So you can actually do some of this stuff very easily now. And how can you do this? This is what is called the BioCurious Lab. It was started by one of the Singularity faculty. It's a non-profit. It's a community project staffed by volunteers. They raised $30,000 from Kickstarter. And I have not done biology since high school. I went in there, and I injected the DNA of a jellyfish glow-in-the-dark gene into an E. coli bacteria, a safe form of it. Following day, they showed me my babies. I had to flush it down the drain, but it's really sad to see my babies going. But robotics, this is a Da Vinci robot. You sit in here and you can do operations and stuff like that. In future, have you seen Prometheus? Where you sit down and the robots move on. So the lady that invented this told me that you do not have to be a doctor to operate this machine. Just a pair of good hands. So if your kids play video games, let them, because all you need is a pair of good hands. But the doctor has to oversee it, obviously. At the moment, it's still connected via fiber optics, but in future, when the internet is more stable, you don't want to do an appendix operation and then DNA, then suddenly your internet drop out and your appendix is hanging in the middle. Not a nice sight. And some of this other robot stuff. This is a telepresent robot, really interesting stuff. Jonathan knows at Autodesk. He doesn't come to work anymore in his office. He comes in as a telepresent robot, goes around, have coffee breaks with his colleagues and so forth. And we made a small one from a Lego Mindstorm. And this one, we built one for $600. It's an iPad, a broomstick pole, and the iRoomba vacuum cleaner robot. Because Peter Diamandis couldn't come, and he just had a pair of twins, so he basically controlled the robot and came. I'm out of time, so shall I wrap it up here or go on? Okay. So this is Phil Rossdale. He is the father of the real Avatar, the Second Life. Have you guys played Second Life? He just came and spoke last week at Singularity, at a fireside chat with Peter Diamandis. He's created a new company called High Fidelity. And he's trying to create a real avatar because technology is so good now. When I move my head, my avatar can actually move in real time. Okay, what's really interesting was, if you don't know what Second Life is, it's basically a virtual world. You create an avatar, you could be anything, a dog, cross-gender, whatever you want, an animal. So IBM and Dell and all these guys bought spaces in this virtual land, and they held conference like that. Maybe in future Awesomeness Fest, you should do that. We don't have to all come in literally, but the beautiful part about it was he told me that IBM ran a conference for their staff, and what happened was IBM basically found that the staff interacted better than a teleconference, because when a teleconference, everybody's sitting down looking very formal, but most of the innovative stuff comes out of the coffee breaks, just like here, right? When we have informal dinner and stuff like that. In the virtual world, you can do that. You can walk out of this room and go out and into a virtual world and speak to each other, and the interaction comes in. But you're still using a mouse and clicking. So what he wants to do is create this new company that will use technology. You can actually touch and feel, and basically virtually. So that's the company is called High Fidelity. You want to watch out for that. The other thing is 90-10 principle. There's a movement now basically to try, like what Kylie was saying, right? Replicating some of the successes in overseas. So this is one company that's doing it, trying to produce a company that provides a service or a product that gives you 90% of the existing product at 10% of the price. An example is this DIY drone. This is Chris Henderson, the guy who wrote the book called The Long Tail and Free. So you should read it if you haven't read it. It's a really interesting book. So what happened here is basically his daughter, 9-year-old daughter, was bored to death during school holidays. So he spent about $600 buying all these parts from Radio Shack and created this drone that basically has the capability of the US Predator drone at 10% of the price. Obviously, it doesn't have weapons and stuff like that, but it was a pretty good replica of a drone. Crowdsourcing is the other thing I want to tell you guys about. Crowdsourcing and gamifying. You guys familiar with crowdsourcing? Basically harnessing the power of 2 billion people on the internet and another billion to come in a couple of years, or another 2 billion in a couple of years. So Foldit, have you guys heard of Foldit? Foldit is a game. Download it because you might become the person that discover a cure for HIV. University of Washington spent about $12 million in 18 months and could not find a solution of how to fold a protein to fit into this structure so it can kill the HIV virus. So somebody said, well, this is a really, it's a puzzle. Humans are good at doing Rubik cubes and stuff. Maybe they can do it. So they created this game. You learn very basic principle of folding proteins. And now the best protein folder in the world is not a scientist. She's actually a receptionist in London. Another one is really inspiring. Okay, somebody asked me what really inspired me at Singularity. This is a 2010 GSP student, a doctor at the United Nations. He was trying to help alleviate the malaria problem. Gates Foundation, and people have poured so much money into it, and people are still dying. Why? So one of the biggest bottleneck is the technicians looking at counting the parasites in your bloodstream. It takes at least 20 to 30 minutes to do that. So that's the big bottleneck. So what did this guy do? Applying Singularity Exponential Technology, he crowdsourced it, made it into a game. You shoot slides of parasites. As you shoot the parasites, you're helping them count. It has already saved 10,000 lives or more. So if you have nothing to do, play this game and save some lives. Thank you. For those of you looking for funding and so forth, if you're familiar with Lean Canvas or Business Canvas, one of the things that you need to do is validate your customer, that you have a customer. Unless you're replicating something like what Kylie is doing, the company's already proven themselves. If you're doing something really trailblazing, nobody has done it before, very risky. As an angel investor, I will tell you that I would be very hesitant to support that. One of the ways to do it is to go on Kickstarter. Have you guys seen this one? It's just a strap for the iPod Nano, right? They wanted to raise $15,000 and they raised $942,000. What they said was, send me $50, I'll send you a strap. Essentially, they got customers and they got they got sales without giving a single cent of shares. Obviously, the negative side to it, you got the Pebble watch too, right? The production is the issue. They wanted 100,000, they got 10 million. But they got to supply the watches though. It's not, like if overnight you got to basically have a real elephant in the room. This is a project that I worked on. Okay, initially I was working on a health project. Long story. Happy to talk to you guys about it. But I was trying to help my friends, and basically I ended up working for an NGO project trying to fight corruption. We're trying to give voice to people who don't have a voice. In corruption, as you know, if I paid a bribe, I got what I wanted. So why should I report it? If you got the money, you won't report it either. But think about the masses of people that do not have a voice, don't have the money to pay a bribe. You can't pay a bribe, you can't get a license, you can't get a new job, you're stuck. So I wanted to give a voice to people who don't have a voice. And we created this project called Corruption Tracker. This is built on a platform from Kenya, actually. This is the Ushahidi platform. It's a crowdsourcing, crowd mapping platform that brought down the Tunisian government. So we met Juliana, and they were in Kenya. Ushahidi means witness. It was used to map out where all the riots were during the election. And then now it's like a big open source project. So have a look at it. I spoke on the same stage as Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, and Vinod Koshal. And this is one of my classmates from Israel. His team created this project that allows you to open up a solar backpack panel that will basically power a household in the developing world. Weighs 14 kilos. So Corruption Tracker was a project. I'll just quickly run through it. Whole idea is you see corruption, you report it by SMS, tweet, or website, and we tell the world and map it so you can see where it's happening. So we created, the guys that I have are super brilliant, right? In 1 week, they wrote the app on the iPhone. That's amazing. And then you will map it and so forth. And I mentioned to you what social enterprise is all about. So, as I said, on one side, you have NGOs depending on donations. It's not sustainable. The other side, you got Occupy Wall Street because the dark side just want to make money at any expense. And that's what they need to do, right? It says maximize shareholders' profit. And so now there's a convergence of what's known as social enterprise. And that's basically what's driving, I think that's the principle that when I invest in a company now, I look for obviously impact, scalability, and obviously whether it is a social enterprise. So the first objective is to provide a service. When I say social enterprise, I don't mean like charities, right? I mean anything that provides a service or a product that will give people a better life. And secondly, is it profitable? If it's not profitable, it's not going to be sustainable. Okay, other projects, MetaNet. It's basically a project that's spin off from my batch. They are creating flying drones to bring medicine and aid to places where there are no roads. The whole idea is that at the moment you can only carry about 30 pounds and 2 miles. You'll do that, you'll land, you'll pass it on to the next one, and it's like a big net that connects to another one and so forth. So it's like a Pony Express, if you like. So that will basically help the... This really inspired me. I mentioned this to a lot of people. Why I'm doing what I do at Singularity, spreading the word to you guys, was I was very inspired by an Indonesian girl that won a competition organized last year here, Indonesia, by my friends. And she went over to Singularity. She worked with 2 Israeli guys. In 3 weeks, they developed this, Medic Sensation. It is a product that allows women to check their own breast for lumps. And a doctor then get the data and can monitor if the lump is growing. I mean, you might not think, well, what's the big deal? We can go to a breast screening clinic. Well, think about the developing world. There's no roads. There's no power. This is an SD card that can actually upload it and so forth. She is now setting up the company in Chile. For those interested, Startup Chile. Fantastic project that one of the Singularity guys advised the government to do. See, what happened is Startup Chile. Chile is a bit like Australia. They have big mines and so forth, the biggest copper mine in the world, and one of the least corrupted country in the Latin American place. They wanted to go into technology and diversify their technology. So they thought of building a park, a multimedia super corridor like in Malaysia or a technology park in Singapore and so on. And the Singularity guys told them, like, look, buildings do not create innovation. It's people like yourself, right? So you want the most brilliant people to come together. When you guys come together, magic happens, right? How do you get them together? So now they decided they won't do that. So that what they're doing is anybody with a great idea, you apply to Startup Chile, they will give you $40,000 seed money. The only proviso is you got to move to Chile for 6 months. That's it. Then you can leave. But when you bring great people together, great things happen. Just like Mindvalley, right? That's why you have this cross-pollination of minds. Oh, the other reason why I was so inspired by this, think about it. This Indonesian girl would never had the opportunity to work with this Israeli guys. There's diplomatically no relationship. But at Singularity, they did. Okay, I'm wrapping up already. So I just want to show these 2 slides because these are the projects from today, actually. They launched it today. So I couldn't show you guys before I had to update my slide. This guy won the European prize and is also now one of the prizes in Singularity. He's trying to use bees to help humans because you know that bees are dying, right? Or fungicide. So what this stuff does is it actually will detect whether a bee has been infected and it will shut the hive so the bee can't come in. or if it's been infected, the whole hive would actually be shut down. So you can monitor. It's a smart hive. And this one, the Israeli guys, they created this blue box, a Blu-ray player. They hacked it, 3 weeks. It scans. You prick your finger, put a bit of blood on the Blu-ray DVD, stick it into a DVD player. It will read the blood and tell you what kind of, whether you have HIV or what kind of, how much virus in your bloodstream and so forth. Personalizing healthcare. All right, so one last one. This guy, Jack Andrecker, if you have not seen him, check him out. This young boy, 15-year-old, very inspired. His uncle died of pancreatic cancer, wanted to find a way to find a cure for it, or early detection. He invented a methodology that cost pennies compared to $700 right now, and in seconds. And he won the prize. Yeah, the video is not here. You can search it up anyway. And other companies in Singularity, Modern Meadows, they're actually trying to grow leather and beef from stem cells. So in future, you never have to kill another animal. You just grow it. See, so would you rather come from a slaughterhouse or from a brewery in a restaurant? And I met Rob. Rob is the founder of Soylent. Have you guys heard of Soylent? Yeah, 2 weeks ago. He kickstarted a project, and he himself published the formula for it. He was kind of tired of going out to eat and all the time, like having to cook and pay for food. And then he told me the real reason why he did this. He had no money to buy food. His startups failed. Kylie didn't give him money. I don't know. Anyway, so what happened was he actually bought all the chemicals and all the nutrition you need, actual chemical compounds, made it into a drink and drank it. And he blogged about it. He said his social life kind of went down because he missed eating, but he was much healthier, and yeah, really interesting guy. And I was at Zappos, so you heard about the downtown project. Actually, this is Tony Hsieh's apartment, because they're trying to revive the whole downtown Las Vegas. And this is the container thing he's building up, and he's working with Burning Man to create this praying mantis that's blowing out fire, and it'll be launched on October. And they have an incubator called Stitch Factory for fashion designers. They bring David Copperfield and talk about the stuff that he does. So that's it, a wrap up. Sorry it took a bit longer than I wanted to, but I've basically talked about exponential technology, and the people that you meet and stuff like that. And, please, and one last point from Larry at Google is, are you working on something that can change the world? Yes or no? Okay, so do that, All right, thank you.